Sometimes you can sense trouble before it even walks through the door. You feel it in the way a hush comes over the room, like the air pulling tight before a storm. That night at Bissimo, some overpriced Italian joint tucked away in the manicured heart of Manhattan, I should have guessed my luck was about to turn. I was sitting at the bar, a man who'd built his life on control, on seeing the patterns others missed, but I didn't see her coming. Not the way that mattered. I'd come in late, wearing the kind of armor I wear every day, a tailored suit, a ring with my family crest heavy on my finger, and a reputation that kept most people at arm's length. The men around me, Enzo, always by my side, and a couple others, talked in low voices, their laughter too sharp to be friendly. I was there because I needed to be seen, needed to remind a handful of partners that I was still in charge, even if my own life was tangled up in a million directions. I remember the scent of the place, cologne that tried too hard, garlic, rich sauce, and then something else. Anxiety, sharp as a struck match. That's when she appeared. The waitress. She carried herself the way wounded animals do, head down, movements precise, like she was just holding it together. Something about her caught my attention, and it wasn't just the way her skirt fit or the exhaustion written in her eyes. No, it was that flicker of fear, the look people get when they're running from something that won't let go. I saw her before she saw me. I saw her pause, plates balanced tight, sweat on her brow, but still moving, always moving. Then suddenly she abandoned a plate of untouched food and made a beeline for the bar. She landed next to me so abruptly, I almost spilled my drink. Her hand grabbed mine. Not politely, not like she knew me, but desperately, the way you grab a lifeline when you're drowning. Her fingers were soft, trembling, squeezing tight enough to make my pinky ring dig into my skin. "My ex-husband just walked in," she whispered, her voice shaking but urgent. "Please, for just a minute, pretend you know me." Her eyes flickered up, two impossibly blue eyes shot with panic. For a second, I just looked at her. I could have shrugged her off. Normally, I don't give in to strangers, too dangerous. But some part of me recognized something in her, something raw, something I remembered seeing in the mirror on my worst nights. Survival. So I played my part. I told her, "Alessandre," low enough that only she could hear. Not a question, just a name, as if this was old routine for me. "I was wondering where you disappeared to." I put my hand on her back, shielding her as her ex. A well-dressed man with two bright eyes scanned the restaurant for her. Maybe she thought I was being gallant, or maybe she sensed something darker. When your life is built on secrets, on watching backs and reading faces, you learn to spot the people who need protection and the ones who'll bring chaos. Enzo, always alert, glanced over. One word from me, and he stood, subtly blocking the ex-husband's view. But I saw the way the man's gaze stuck on us, confusion mixing with something uglier, a kind of hunger, the need to control. She looked up at me again, face flushed, shame mingling with relief. "Thank you," she said, just above a whisper. I squeezed her hand once before letting go, feeling her pulse flicker against my skin. "Is that him?" I asked. She nodded, silent, the fear almost metallic between us. Whatever story she was running from, I knew then I was about to become part of it. Maybe I should have sent her away, told her to solve her own problems, but the truth is, I've never been that kind of man. Control is my addiction, and trouble always finds me, sooner or later. What I didn't realize then, what I couldn't realize as she leaned gratefully into my protection, was that this woman, this stranger, would upend everything I thought I understood about power, loyalty, and even love. And as I watched her try not to tremble, as Enzo murmured in my ear that the problem was being dealt with, I made a quiet decision. I would keep her safe. For tonight. No promises after that. But that was before I heard her ex-husband's voice. Before I saw the way he looked at her, as if she was something to own or break. Before I realized that for the first time in years, someone besides myself had something I wanted to fight for. The next few minutes would teach me more about myself than the last 10 years of running businesses and dodging bullets. Sometimes, your whole life changes on the night you least expect. Sometimes, it only takes one desperate touch to rewrite your future. And as the evening darkened beyond those tall glass doors, I sensed the first domino falling, setting in motion a chain I couldn't stop if I wanted to. I tightened my grip on her waist. Let whatever storm comes, I thought. Tonight I'd draw the line. Even now, years into this world, I'll never grow indifferent to danger when it's personal. The moment my hand settled on hers, the room changed. I could feel Enzo's attention tighten. He's always watching for threats, but now his eyes never strayed from me or the woman clinging to my side. She was shaking just a little. Subtle tremors, the kind you could miss if you weren't the sort of man who notices everything. Her ex-husband, David, I would learn later, stood at the front, impatient, confused, entitled. His arrogance seeped through every gesture, the way he tossed his head. How easy he made it for perfect strangers to hate him. "Keep your eyes forward, cara mia," I murmured to her. "He's trying to catch your attention. Let him wonder." She let out a shaky laugh, grateful, hurt, her lips barely curving. "I'm sorry. He ruins everything." "I shouldn't have—" I stopped her with the smallest squeeze of her hand, anchoring her in the moment. "You did the right thing," I said. "Sometimes you have to ask for help, even if it's from the wrong person." She blinked, surprised, almost relieved at my honesty, like maybe I understood her better than she expected. Enzo slipped in beside me at the bar, voice low, formal as ever. "Boss, your table's ready." His look flicked pointedly from my hand on hers to David, glaring holes in our backs. I smiled, maintaining the facade. "Thank you, Enzo. The lady will join me. Please inform the staff." He knew better than to question me in public, but I caught a shadow of doubt before he turned on his heel. Enzo's loyalty is iron, but even he was unsettled. It's not like me to let strangers into my orbit. I stood, keeping her hand in mine, walking both of us through the room as if it were natural, as if I owned every soul in the place. In a way, I did. Two of the waiters stiffened as I passed. One whispered into his comm earpiece. I flashed a reassuring half-smile. We sat in a booth in the far corner. I made sure my back faced the wall, her view clear. Here, we could talk. She watched her ex, chewing her lip. Helpless rage and humiliation splashed across her face. I leaned in. "Talk to me. I can protect you, but not if I don't know what's happening." She shook her head, voice thick with humiliation. "It's stupid. I left him a year ago. Finally left. He drained our accounts, vanished, came back with a woman and divorce papers. Now he shows up here just to let me know he can, to scare me. I have a daughter, Emma. She's 4. He doesn't care about her. It's all about control." That word lingered between us. Control. It's something I've always understood, but hearing it from her, in that voice, did something sharp in my chest. A note of anger, not for myself, but for her. "Does he know where you live?" She stiffened. "No, I move around. I have neighbors who help. She's safe tonight, but he finds me. He always finds me." I let the implication hang. "He won't tonight." Then lower, gentler. "Why are you still here? Why keep working in this place with people like him watching?" She shrugged almost defensively. "For Emma, every dollar. I can't get another job right now. I can barely afford rent. And everywhere we've gone, he's followed. Her voice broke. Across the room I saw David fuming, demanding something of the hostess, glancing at us. I caught his eyes deliberately, letting him see me, letting him notice who she was sitting with. I gave him nothing. No invitation, no weakness. Just a steady stare that made most men drop their gaze first. But he was stubborn, probably too stupid to know what kind of danger he'd just invited into his life. My phone buzzed. A message from Enzo. "You need us nearby." My reply was short. "Stay close. Just watch." I turned my attention back to her. "He'll try again. Men like him always do, but you came to the right man even if you didn't know it. I run this side of the city. No one touches what I protect." She studied me then, suspicion and gratitude warring in her, maybe even a bit of old-fashioned fear. I don't mind that. Fear is honest. I signaled the waiter, a kid I knew from years back. "Gianni, bring a bottle of Barolo, and food for the lady. On the house." He grinned. There's respect in his eyes, something like relief too, and vanished into the kitchen. I took a breath, weighing how much to reveal. "Do you know who I am?" I asked her softly. She shook her head. "Should I?" That made me smile, a real smile, something I didn't offer often. "Maybe not tonight. Just trust me for now, at least until you're safe." Her jaw tensed. "I'm tired of trusting people, Vincent." Somehow the sound of her saying my name, the way it felt real, direct, bothered me more than I liked. Gianni reappeared with the wine. "Trouble with her ex?" he muttered as he poured. "You need help?" "That's handled," I said, my voice flat, final. The tension built quietly through the meal. She picked at her pasta, talking more. about her daughter, her exhaustion, the insults she suffered nightly, her fear that no matter what she did, she'd always be running. She didn't ask about my life, but she listened as if she could somehow learn about me through the things I wasn't saying. Enzo texted quietly from the wall, as if he was just another patron. I directed my men's movements with a glance or nod, making it clear nobody would touch her while she sat beside me. David eventually left in a fury, throwing down his napkin and glaring at the door so long I half expected him to shatter glass by force of will alone. When it was over, she sagged with exhaustion. "I'll get your coat," I said. She hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" 1,000 things passed through my mind. Loyalty, power, patterns learned in childhood by watching my father's icy kindness. But what I said was simple. Because I don't like bullies. She laughed, choked, brushing tears away. "I haven't met many men like you." "No," I agreed, holding the door so she could step out first. "You haven't." On the street, autumn air bit sharp across her face. My car idled nearby, driver masked in shadows. I glanced at her, remembering more than I'd admit. The times I was the one running, the times I needed someone to make the monsters go away. "You should let me drive you home," I offered, not quite a question. She hesitated, considering, then nodded, the smallest act of faith. As I helped her into the car, I resolved quietly, inside, that tonight would be different. Tonight no one would leave this story more broken than when they entered, not if I could help it. And as the city lights blurred past on the ride, her hand remained close to mine, not clinging now, just steady. It was a small thing, but for a man like me, it meant everything. "Hey, before we keep going, I want to say, this story is deeply personal to me, maybe not in every detail, but in spirit. If you've ever felt stuck, outnumbered, overwhelmed, you're definitely not alone. Let me know in the comments what part resonated, or even where you're listening from. I love hearing your stories too. It reminds me we're all fighting our own battles. The car ride home was supposed to be simple, a gesture, a favor, something I could cross off the ledger at the end of a complicated night. I'd given people rides before, provided temporary safety, made myself a shield between them and whatever haunted them. But this was different. I felt it in the way the car smelled of cold leather and rain, how the only noise was the soft hum of the city, sliding by outside. She was quiet, but not asleep. Every so often she'd glance out the window, like she was half expecting her ex to come lunging from the darkness and drag her away. The city at night can feel like either prison or freedom, depending on what you're running from. I let the silence stretch, giving her time. She surprised me when she finally spoke. "You always this kind to strangers?" Her voice was hoarse but edged with a little defiance, a tone I respected. "Not usually," I answered honestly, watching her reflection in the glass. "You remind me of someone I knew, someone who thought they could outrun their fate until the day it caught up to them." She chewed her lip, thoughtful, maybe wanting to press for more, but she let it slide and instead asked, "Why do you do it then? Why help?" "I like to think I know what it's like to be hunted," I said softly, almost surprised by my own confession. Beneath the suit, beneath the name, people whispered at tables and alleys. There was a part of me I rarely allowed out in the open, a boy who learned early that sometimes the only defense is to become the thing others fear. She didn't answer, but she looked at me the first time she really looked, not as the man in the suit, not as the outstretched arm, but as someone broken and reconstructed 100 times over. The car stopped in front of a battered apartment block, windows lit up like fractured lanterns. "You live here?" I asked. She nodded, almost apologetic. "Top floor. It's not much, but the neighbors look out for Emma when I'm on shift." Emma, the daughter. The word itself carried weight, anchoring everything she did to a life outside this chaos. I understood. You don't last in my world unless someone or something gives you a reason to keep waking up, keep walking through fire. I leaned forward, murmured to the driver, "Wait here." Then I turned back to her. Lily, her name as soft as linen on my tongue. "Let me walk you up." She hesitated. "I don't want to get you involved." A twinge of humor cut through my seriousness. "That ship sailed, don't you think?" The foyer was dim. The stairs creaked, the paint on the walls flaking, the sort of detail my own mother would have picked to pieces. At her door, she paused, fishing for keys with hands still trembling. I noticed her glancing at the neighboring door, a coded message maybe, checking if the neighbor was awake, if Emma had made a peep. She opened the door quietly, one of those battered security chains rattling as she peered inside. She called out soft and urgent. "Linda, is she asleep?" A kindly, broad-shouldered woman emerged from the shadows, her face weary but gentle. "Right as rain," she said. "Didn't wake once. She got that from her mum, tough as nails." She looked me over, suspicion sparking in her eyes. "You a friend?" That old challenge, friend or threat, no space in between. Lily stood straighter. "He helped me tonight. Linda, this is Vincent." Linda's sharp eyes flicked between us. "You look like trouble," she said, not without a hint of humor. "Sometimes that's the same thing as help where I'm from," I answered, offering a small smile. There was a beat as Linda seemed to size me up. Then she nodded. "Don't break her heart. And don't leave messes for me to clean up." Under her jest, I felt the steel. She was the kind of neighbor who'd call the cops, or worse if she smelled something off. "Understood," I said, sincerity in my tone. "Thank you, Linda. I'll get her home safe." When Linda finally slipped next door and the locks clicked into place, Lily let out a breath she'd been holding all evening. We stepped inside, and I saw her home for what it was. Tiny, cluttered, full of Emma's colorful drawings and thrift store furniture. Nothing safe, nothing easy, but every inch claimed with desperate, determined love. She crouched to check her sleeping daughter, tucking her blanket, smoothing hair from a small crescent moon face. For a moment I looked away. Private moments, sacred. I wasn't raised to intrude. She turned to me, voice hushed. "Thank you. Again. I don't know what would have happened if—" I held up a hand, not wanting gratitude, wanting only to extend something solid for her to stand on. "You don't have to say it, not tonight." She looked at me, searching for something. Weakness, agenda, maybe just a trace of the man she'd grabbed in that restaurant. What she found, I don't know. But she closed the distance, and for one brief second, her head rested on my chest. Just one breath, heart to heart, before she pulled away. "Will he come back?" she asked, eyes wide, voice small. "I won't let him," I promised. I meant it more than I expected. For a man who always kept his word, this suddenly felt different. Dangerous, as if keeping her safe would cost me more than money or muscle. I was already in deeper than I liked to admit. I checked my phone as I left. Enzo had texted, "You good? Want company tonight?" "No. Stand down, but keep 2 men close. She and the kid are not to be touched." As I walked back to the waiting car, the street suddenly felt colder, like a warning from some invisible enemy. I ducked inside, the leather smell wrapping around me, a reminder of both power and isolation. "Where to now, boss?" my driver asked, voice careful, almost gentle. I stared out at the shadows pooling under the street lamps. "Nowhere. Just drive." Sometimes the only way to clear your head is to keep moving, as if distance itself can dilute memory. The next morning I sent flowers, nothing flashy, just lilies and a card that read, "If you need anything, call this number." No names. My phone buzzed an hour later, a new message from my sister Maria, sharp and always intuitive. "You're getting attached. You sure you can handle this mess?" I almost laughed, typing, "Since when do you give advice? Worry about your own kids." But the doubt stuck with me. I was breaking my own rules, letting what should be a one-night favor bleed into the next day, the next problem, the next risk. Sometime around noon, Enzo called, his voice rough with concern. "Boss, you sure about this? Word's out some guy made trouble at Bissimo last night. You want us to handle it?" "No blood, Enzo," I said. "Not unless he makes the first move. Just watch. Let me know if he goes near her again." He grunted. "Never seen you like this." That made 2 of us. The line went quiet. I leaned back, the city sunlight crawling across my hand, warming the tattooed scars there. For years I'd been a fortress, untouchable, unyielding. Now I felt a crack widen with every pulse, every memory of blue eyes wide with hope and fear. I didn't know yet what would come for us, only that I'd drawn a line in the sand, and whatever storm came next, I wouldn't back down, not when I'd tasted, even for a night, what it could mean to belong. By the next afternoon, I'd already learned more about Lily's life than I expected. When you survive as long as I have, you develop habits. You have eyes and ears everywhere, and secrets come to you whether you want them or not. That day, I couldn't help myself. Made a few discreet calls. Got Linda's number from a friend at City Records. Checked on Emma with a quick word to a buddy in CPS just to make sure no court papers would blindside us. Old habits. Good intentions maybe, but those can be the most dangerous kind. I went through the motions at the club that night. The club is a front, a world full of old furniture and new money and faces that shine with the wrong kind of confidence. Every Thursday, I host partners. I keep the peace, settle debts, shake hands. You don't get to walk away from my world unless I decide it's safe for you to do so. Usually, I relish those nights, playing chess with men who think they can outsmart me. Tonight, though, I kept checking my watch, thinking about a little apartment in Queens instead of deals and betrayals. Enzo noticed, of course. He watched me from the corner, eagle-eyed over his whiskey. When the others left for smoke or nonsense, he pulled a chair up beside me, voice low. "You're distracted, she's got you sideways." I didn't correct him. "She deserves better than what she's got," I said. "She deserves better than you," he shot back, but his voice wasn't cruel, just careful. "And her ex?" I shook my head. "No moves yet." He tapped his glass, thinking, "You're making us vulnerable, Vince. People talk." I turned and stared at him fully. "Let them talk, as long as nobody acts." He stared back, loyalty and worry fighting in his face. "Sure, but you know how heat spreads. You get soft, the sharks circle." I drained my whiskey. "I'm not getting soft. I'm getting precise." He leaned in, voice rumbling. "Just make sure you know which side of the fire you're standing on." I left earlier than usual, telling myself it was just business. I checked my phone, no calls, no texts, but felt the tingling sense of being watched. My paranoia keeps me alive, but this felt different, like I was missing something right under my nose. That night, the city rumbled with distant sirens and the ghosts of promises. I barely slept, every hour woken by some imagined noise. Footsteps on the stairs, voices whispering outside. Sometime past midnight, my phone finally buzzed. An unknown number lit up. I answered cautiously. "Yeah?" There was silence, then a child's voice. "My mum said I should call you if I get scared." My heart lurched. "Emma?" A sniffle. "Yeah. Mummy said you made the monsters go away at the restaurant. She's crying in the other room. I think she's scared too." I tried to soften my voice, remembering what it was like to be 5 years old, with monsters lurking in every shadow. "Hey, Emma, I'm just down the road. Nobody's going to hurt you. Can you give the phone to your mum?" But there was more noise in the background. A scuffle, desperate whispers. Then Lily, breathless, came on the line. "Vincent? I'm sorry, I didn't mean for her to call. He was outside again, banging on the door, yelling. "Linda called the police, but they just told us to keep inside till morning. She's so scared, Vincent. So am I." I felt something harden in my chest. "I'll be right there. Keep the lights off. Don't let anyone in but me." I tore through the city in a haze, anger sharp and blinding. By the time I arrived, Enzo and 2 of my men were already there, circling the block, keeping things tight. Linda met me in the hall, eyes fierce, bathrobe cinched around her like armor. "He was here, ran off when your boys showed up. We called it in, but he'll be back." I nodded, brushing past her to Lily's door. She opened it with shaking hands, and I saw, just for a second, the brave woman falter. "I'm so tired, Vincent," she whispered. I took Emma gently into my arms. She clung tight, trusting me in a way I didn't deserve. "You're safe now," I murmured, looking over Lily's bent shoulders. There was an honesty to that moment, all of us huddled together under the cheap kitchen light, the kind of honesty you can't fake, not even in my line of work. I had to make my offer, the only one that made sense. "Come stay where I can keep you safe. I've got apartments, empty floors, guards." She shook her head. "He'll find us wherever. He always does." I crouched to Emma's level, softening my voice. "Do you want to come with me? I have a huge TV. You can pick the first movie." She nodded sleepily, wiping her nose on her pajama sleeve. "Can my mom come too?" I laughed, a sound that startled me. "Only if she helps pick the popcorn." Lily tried to object, but exhaustion won. I collected bags, bundled Emma into my arm, wrapped Lily in my jacket. Enzo took point, pistol at his hip, eyes like a hawk. On the way out, Linda caught my sleeve. "Bring them back safe," she said, and I realized she meant it as an oath. Driving through the night, my car full of warmth and exhaustion, I realized how easily your life can tip. A week ago, the thought of a child asleep on my shoulder and a woman leaning into my side would have seemed impossible. Now it felt inevitable. At my apartment, simple on the outside, fortress within, I tucked Emma on the couch, brought Lily tea. We stood in my kitchen as if we'd rehearsed it, letting the city rage outside. She was quiet, but her questions finally came. "Vincent, who are you, really? Why do you care this much?" I hesitated, caught between old instinct and newfound honesty. I grew up in a place where nobody protected us. My father was the king, but his kingdom was blood. I swore I'd do it differently. Doesn't always work out that way, but tonight, I trailed off. She blinked, understanding at least in part. "You're not just a good man, are you?" she said softly. Her hand found mine, squeezing. I shook my head. "Not by most standards, but for you, I can be." Outside, sirens faded, streetlights glared. For tonight, at least, they were safe. But I knew the cost of safety. Someone always wanted to collect, and I'd just placed all my bets on the one hand I couldn't afford to lose. And as Emma slept and Lily finally let herself rest on my shoulder, I felt the weight of every promise I'd ever broken settle against my chest. Tomorrow would come, and with it, the reckoning. But I'd buy them one more night of peace, whatever it took, and I had a sinking feeling that for me all debts were about to come due. There's an unspoken rule in my line of work. Never get attached. Not to places, not to promises, never to people. But as dawn crept over the city, and slivers of light snuck through the blackout shades of my penthouse, I found myself glued to the soft rise and fall of Emma's breath and the gentle curve of Lily's back as she finally slept. Cocooned in safety, I could only provide for a moment. My whole life I've known what it means to keep a home fortified. Steel doors, mirrored glass, alarms that hum quietly from every corner. This building had housed the kind of men who dealt in futures, collected on threats, polished their reputations with other people's blood. For years, it was just a place to stash cash and secrets. Suddenly, it smelled different. A trace of lavender from the shampoo Lily used, popcorn crumbs from Emma on the couch, something impossibly fragile and good. I made breakfast that morning, the ritual awkward in my hands. The last time I'd scrambled eggs for someone was the day before my mother died. I remembered how I'd burned the toast. She laughed, called me Vincenzo, and kissed my head all the same. That memory stung the way old wounds do in the cold. I left the plates out on the kitchen island, poked my head into the living room. "Breakfast is up," I called, keeping my voice casual. Emma appeared first, her curls wild, dragging Lily by the hand. Both blinked at the bright, unfamiliar kitchen. Emma's eyes lit up at the food. Lily hesitated a second, peering past me at the array of security cameras and the bulletproof windows. "You don't exactly do subtle, do you?" she asked, a tired smile tugging at her lips. I shrugged. Subtle doesn't keep anybody safe. Emma dug in, and for a while we were just 3 people at a table. No enemies behind the door, no debts waiting for the phone to ring. Small talk happened in careful sips. I asked about Emma's favorite shows. Lily caught me up on what I'd missed in the world of bedtime routines and school supply lists. It felt almost normal. The illusion lasted until my phone started buzzing, a vibration on the countertop too insistent to ignore. Enzo's name flashed on the screen. I excused myself and stepped down the hallway, closing the door so Emma wouldn't hear. "What is it?" I asked. Enzo's voice was tense. "David's been circling. We caught him watching the building last night. Got a plate, ran it through. He's using someone else's car. Cops won't touch him. He's got a friend on the inside, classic rich boy stunts. But get this, one of our guys says he's talking to the Giordano family. Could be nothing, or he's trying to make trouble between us." I felt my jaw clench. "Keep eyes everywhere, quietly. I want him scared but untouched for now." Enzo grunted. "What do you want with the girl and the kid, boss? This feels out of character." I stared at the reflection in the glass. Sharp suit, tired eyes, mouth set in a line that's broken more promises than most men ever make. What did I want? A soft life? A reprieve from my own legend? Or just to prove that I could still save something before it all went up in flames? "Just keep them safe, Enzo. I'll handle the fallout." When I got back, Lily was standing by the window, arms crossed, surveying the skyline. "You're really in deep," she said, voice quiet. "I recognize the look in your eyes. My father had it. Old war stories, always waiting for the knife in his back." I joined her, setting a careful distance between us. "In my line of work, it's rare you get to choose what keeps you up at night. But I'm choosing this." She looked at me, half wary, half searching. "You say protection like a vow. But what happens when he comes for us again? Will you be there?" It was the hardest truth. "Yes, even if it costs me." She surprised me then, pressing her forehead gently to my chest. A quiet, desperate gesture. "I want to believe you, Vincent." Emma's laugh rang out from the kitchen. For a moment, all I could think of was how much I wanted to make this last. But reality is always on the other side of the door. Later that morning, as Lily bathed Emma and tried to make sense of this new hideout, I checked the perimeter myself, making sure no one had breached the lobby, no cameras had been disabled. My men kept their distance, respectful but wary. Word was getting around. "Vincent Russo's gone soft," some whispered. Others said I was planning something big, that this was just a cover. In this world, kindness is always mistaken for strategy or weakness. Enzo met me in the security room, a wall of monitors flickering through the city's heartbeat. "You sure about not putting heat on David?" he asked. "I don't want a war over a dirtbag," I said. "But if he steps inside this block, all bets are off." Enzo nodded, but the line in his jaw said he was itching for action. "I'll double the watch." Back in the apartment, Emma napped on the couch, a blanket thrown over her small frame. Lily sat opposite me, legs curled beneath her, mug in hand. She finally spoke, her guard lowered. "You seem like a man who's lost things before." I let that hang between us before answering. "I have. Lost things, lost people. But I've never given up on protecting what's left, even if it means building a fortress around it." She nodded, her eyes glossy. "What if I can't stay? What if you can't always be there?" A storm built in me, a mix of longing, frustration, and the bone-deep knowledge that every promise might be broken before it's fulfilled. I reached for her hand, warm and steady now in mine. "For tonight you're safe. Tomorrow we fight again. But I won't let you be alone with this. Not ever again." She squeezed my hand, and for the first time since this began, I felt something bloom inside. Hope, dangerous as any weapon I've ever carried. That night, as they slept and I watched the sun slip away behind the concrete towers, I knew boundaries had shifted. What started as an accident, a desperate hand in a crowded bar, had become something else entirely. One thing was certain: people would come for us, his people. Maybe even some of mine, if they thought my weakness was their opening. But I knew pain, knew loss, violence, regret. I'd faced them all before. Now, for the first time, I was ready to face them again. Not for myself, but for someone else. And for the first time, I wondered if that was what real strength looked like. I thought I knew the price of power. I figured I could tally up every risk in silence, a glance, a phone call, a veiled threat over coffee. But nothing prepares you for real fear, the kind you feel when you realize you could lose something you didn't even know you wanted until yesterday. The days that followed ran on the edge of normal life, every minute defined by strategy. Lily and Emma started to adapt to the rhythm of this fortress hideout. Lily, bit by bit, carved out routines, folding her clothes in the guest room closet, leaving scribbled notes with small requests: milk, soap, colored pencils. Watching her blossom here beneath steel and concrete was like seeing spring bloom in the cracks of an empty lot. Emma adapted the way resilient kids do. She explored every room, drew smiling monsters on the big windows when the sun came in. This apartment, haunted by heavy memories and silent nights, was suddenly noisy. Laughter under vaulted ceilings, the smell of burnt cookies, tiny scraps of life scattered everywhere. For a moment, I almost believed it could last. But outside, the world kept circling, hungry. That Thursday, new rumors reached me before noon. One of my informants, a mailman with quick fingers and no loyalty, left word as he slid a letter through the service gate. "Someone's at the square, asking too much. Out-of-towners, heavy accents, all in black, not here for coffee. Want names." Enzo confirmed it minutes later, already deploying men to cover not just our street, but the neighbors, the alleys, even the corner store. It wasn't just David anymore. There was that sudden scent of war, the kind of tension that creeps in when predators sense blood or weakness. I watched how it hit my crew. That night around the dinner table, everyone was uneasy. More glances, hands resting on guns. Even the jokes seemed sharper, more nervous than usual. I saw how the risks were growing, how the line between protection and exposure was starting to disappear. Later, when Emma was in bed, Lily came to find me in my office. She sat down across from me with a new weight in her posture. "What changed?" she asked, straight to the point. "Since we came here? I feel you pulling away, distracted." I almost lied, but I was tired of lies. I looked into her eyes and let every fracture show. "Everything changed, Lily. What I do has consequences. My name protects, but it draws fire too, and now I'm scared of putting you and Emma in the crosshairs." She sighed and stood, walked over to me and held my hand like she was anchoring herself there. "You already saved us. If something happens now, I'd rather remember what safety felt like, even if it's just for a few nights." I felt the wall I'd spent years building crack another inch. "Do you really understand that? I'm not a hero, Lily. There are things behind me. Debts, enemies. I tried to be different, but if I have to, I'll do anything to protect what I love." The word slipped out before I could catch it. Love. She heard it, and she didn't run. She just stayed. "My whole life I ran from dangerous men," she whispered. "You're the first one who makes me want to stand and fight." In that silence, our worlds finally met. Messy, brave and honest. A little later we went to bed. She fell asleep first, her head on my chest, breathing slowing until it sounded like a promise. I wanted to believe it could last, but I knew better. Beautiful things never last here, not on this side of the city. It was almost dawn when Enzo knocked, eyes dark, jacket creased from running. "We've got company." Giordano sent 3 guys to circle the garage. David disappeared. Ditched the stolen car, showed up on cameras in the Bronx. "They're looking for a weak spot, boss." My voice was low and cold. "Prep everything. And if anyone makes a move, there's no hesitation." He nodded, but I caught a sadness in him, the kind that knows affection is luxury in a world built on blood contracts. I went back to the suite, perched at the edge of the bed. Emma was curled under the covers, Lily twisted in sleep. Fear tightened in my chest, but so did something sharper. Pride. They were mine to protect, no matter the cost. I checked my gun, counted the bullets, whispered a prayer. Not for me, but for them. Maybe tomorrow this fragile truce would end. But for tonight, as long as we were together, I made a silent vow. If they want war, they'll find the demon I became to survive. But my girls, they'll live to see the sunrise. Trouble doesn't circle forever. It finds a way in. Friday night, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Dark circles under my eyes, jaw set too tight, suit wrinkled from sleeping in shifts. I paced the apartment, security feeds flickering along the walls. Every camera a reminder that safety was a cage with velvet edges. Lily heard me restless and joined me on the balcony, thin blanket wrapped around her. City sprawled endlessly in the dark. She didn't speak for a while. She just leaned next to me, looked over the railing like a tourist searching for answers in a skyline. "You ever think about leaving it all behind?" she asked, her voice softer than the breeze. I could have lied, given her comfort. Instead, I told her what honest men rarely admit. Every morning. But men like me don't get clean exits. There's always someone left to pay. She placed her head against my arm, hungry for warmth, and I felt my resolve waver under the simple weight of human need. "We could try," she said, almost a challenge. I thought about it, the impossible dream. But the phone in my pocket was burning, buzzing. When I finally checked, it was Enzo. The building's lobby camera had picked up someone new. A delivery guy who never delivered anything, standing too long by the elevator, glancing up at the cameras, then vanishing. "They're probing," Enzo whispered coolly. "Trying your patience, seeing how far they can push. Double the guard. Pull in everyone from Queens and Brooklyn," I said. "David doesn't get close." "Not tonight." When I went back in, Emma was awake, bleary-eyed in the hallway. She reached for me, tiny fist clutching my shirt sleeve. "Are you scared, Mr. Vincent?" she asked, and the innocence cut deeper than any knife. "Sometimes," I said, "but I'm never scared when you and your mom are close." That night, the apartment breathed with tension. Lily locked the doors twice, checked the windows herself, and stayed by Emma's side until she drifted into dreams. I watched them, wondering how much longer I could keep up this pretense of safety. After midnight came the breach. It started as a thud in the stairwell, barely a sound to most, but to me it was a shot in the dark. I moved before fear could take root, hand on the cold grip of my pistol. Enzo's voice crackled through the radio. "Boss, backstairs, movement, at least 2, gloves and masks." Lily's eyes snapped open when I burst into the bedroom. I motioned for silence, pressed Emma against her chest, brought them both to the closet. A last resort safe zone armored for moments like this. "I'll come back for you," I whispered. I looked in Lily's eyes and she nodded once, brave, terrified, trusting me anyway. Outside, the hallway smelled like sweat and gun oil. I moved fast, heart pounding in my ears. The first guy never saw me coming, Quick blow and he went down, guns skittering along the floor. The second got a shot off, wild, shattering a vase in the corner. I was faster. 1, 2, disarmed, no mercy. Sirens screamed in the distance. Enzo had triggered the silent alarm. By the time I returned, dust hung in the air, glass everywhere. I opened the closet door and found Lily clutching Emma in the dark, both shaking but alive. "We're safe," I said, voice rough with adrenaline and relief. "It's over, for now." But as I gathered them in my arms, the realization struck me. No fortress is ever perfect. No man can stop the world from coming for what he loves. And now they truly knew where to find the thing I feared losing most. Sunrise found us battered, but unbroken, together. Still a family, if only for one more day. But outside, the city was rumbling, hungry, eager to test every promise I'd made and every weakness I had left. Dawn didn't feel like peace. The city outside still pulsed with danger, and I sensed, deep down, that last night was only a rehearsal. Word would spread. Too many old debts, too many enemies had seen a crack in my armor. No matter how many locks, cameras, or deals I made, some threats always found a way in. Enzo arrived before breakfast, his face drawn and eyes hard. "Safe house in Jersey," he said. "Set it up myself. You all should move. Today." Lily looked at me with that new resilience in her gaze, stronger than most men I've ever known. "We trust you," she whispered, touching my cheek, voice trembling but brave. Emma hugged my legs, trusting I could fix the world. If only they knew how haunted I was by all the things I'd never been able to save. As we packed, I felt a tremor in my hands, half fear, half fury. I'd made the call. My men would escort Lily and Emma to Jersey, and I would make a stand here, a target, to draw David, Giordano, anyone who'd come looking. I didn't tell them. Couldn't. I just wanted to memorize these moments, a smile, a hug, the color in Lily's eyes. "Why can't we all go together?" Emma asked, frowning at the uniforms. The rush. I squatted down, touched her cheek. "Because sometimes the bravest thing is to trust people, just for a little while. I promise I'll see you soon." Lily took my hand, fingers tight as iron. "Don't do something stupid, Vincent," she begged in a whisper. I forced a smile. "It's only stupid if it doesn't work." She pulled me into a kiss, fierce and final, as though pouring hope straight into my blood. Enzo drove them away, black sedans swallowing my whole world, leaving the apartment echoing and cold. I sat in the silence, every second sharper than a blade. Then the storm hit. It wasn't subtle. A battering ram to the lobby, gunfire echoing up the stairwells, shouting, doors splintering. I counted the shadows. Giordano's muscle, David's desperate rage twisting his face at the front of the pack. I made myself bait, standing alone in the open, pistol in hand. Everything I was distilled into this one standoff. Time slowed. I moved like I was built for this, a legend spun from violence and loss. Every shot, every step, a promise. "You will not touch what is mine." Men fell, glass shattered, the noise was biblical. I took a bullet in the shoulder, kept moving. I bought minutes, maybe only seconds, enough for the sedans to disappear, for the world's worst men to realize, this monster bleeds but he does not back down. Finally, it was just me and David, cracked, sweating, wild-eyed. "You ruined me, Russo," he spat, gun dropping from his broken hand. "No," I said, voice like gravel. "You did that yourself, I just ended it." He ran or tried to, but Enzo's men swept in behind me. Clean up, the last chapter in a story of blood and hubris. I crashed down in the ruined apartment, gasping, pain burning everywhere but my heart. There it was, pure, full, and for the first time in years at peace. A day later, bruised but standing, I arrived at the safe house in Jersey. Lily met me at the door, tears tracking down her cheeks, Emma shrieking my name and dragging me inside. Their embrace was everything. Redemption and absolution. The proof that I had finally risked everything for something real. Later, as Lily bandaged my arm, I told her the truth with no armor left. I was afraid loving you would destroy me, but not loving you, that would have been certain death. She pressed her forehead to mine, breathing me in, fierce and steadfast. "We get to choose what kind of life we build from here, Vincent, not just what we survive on." And as the day slipped into dusk, Emma running in the tall backyard grass, Lily laughing softer than I'd ever heard, I sat back and let it wash over me. For the first time, I wasn't outrunning my past. For the first time, I believed in a future, and in the echoes of sirens far off, distant, fading, finally powerless, I realized the world might always chase men like me. But for tonight, and every tomorrow I could steal for them, I was free. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through Vincent's world, a story of found family, sacrifice, and what it means to fight for something worth saving. Your presence and attention mean more than words can say. I'd love to hear what you thought of Vincent's story. Did this ending hit you the way you expected? Or did anything surprise you? Would you be interested in a continuation, seeing what happens next for Vincent, Lily, and Emma as they try to build a new life beyond crime and chaos? Or would you prefer a brand new story, maybe with different themes or characters, something lighter, darker, or even set in another world entirely? Your thoughts and feedback matter deeply, and they help shape where we go next together. Please share your impressions, feelings, or ideas in the comments or messages. Would you want to follow these characters further, or are you craving something totally fresh? What themes or stories are you hungry for? If you enjoyed this tale, or if you have ideas for what you'd love to hear next, let me know and invite a friend to listen in too. Thank you again for listening, and for letting these characters live a little longer through you. Now it's your turn. What did you feel? What do you want? And what should we dream up next?